So am I clear? I'll just go ahead to start.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, you
Good
are.
morning. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. It fills me up with so much joy to welcome you to this inaugural public session of Fatima's Inclusive Learning Foundation for Children. Seeing each one of you here today reminds me why this foundation exists, because inclusion begins with people who show up, actually. So thank you for showing up and for lending your time, your talent, and your heart to this mission. But before we begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that today marks the start of something meaningful and a shared effort to make learning in Nigeria not just available, but truly accessible and inclusive for every child, especially those with cognitive disabilities like autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, Down syndrome, although not limited to them. So thank you again for joining us today. My name is Fatima Muazu, and it is both an honor and joy to welcome you to this session with Fatima's Inclusive Learning Foundation for Children. Actually, this foundation is deeply personal to me. It's not something I stumbled into by chance. You know, it's been something life kept placing in my path again and again until it became something I couldn't ignore anymore, because I have family members with neurodevelopmental disabilities, and I've also taught learners who struggle, not because they don't have the intelligence, but because the school environment was not built with them in mind. You know, in Nigeria today, when disability is mentioned, the most likely ideas that rushes into our heads, our minds, are physical impairments like visual difficulties, speech limitations, hearing loss, and restricted mobility. And while all these forms of disability actually need support and deserve inclusion, there is a broad group of disabilities that are largely unseen, misunderstood, and underserved. That's the category of people with cognitive and neurodevelopmental disabilities. And by that, I'm referring to conditions like autism spectrum disorder, Down syndrome, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, dyslexia, dyscalculia with other specific learning disabilities, and then cerebral palsy and other forms of developmental delays. So these conditions affect how the brain processes information, particularly how a child understands, learns, communicates, self-regulates their emotions, and interacts with their environment. But because, you know, their conditions are always not they are not visible, physically visible, they are misinterpreted in as stubbornness, sometimes as laziness, or like they are tagged as incompetent people. And in most cases, they're just generally regarded as behavioral problems. So as I said, I was a teacher I was a teacher early in my career. So I had a pupil who was mute, we'll say. He wasn't deaf, he wasn't dumb. He could speak, but not in the class. So every teacher was, you know, complaining he's stubborn, he's lazy, he's incompetent, and all this. Only for me to realize it's not that he was stubborn. When you stand him up to do an activity in class, he just keeps mute and wouldn't respond, no matter how hard you try. So it was after a long time of interacting with him, I realized he was having problems, you know, forming basic spelling of two-letter words at the minimum. And at that time, he was about 8 to 9 years old. So you can imagine he was labeled as a lazy or incompetent pupil, not because he was actually lazy, but because his brain processes information differently from his peers. But with one-on-one intervention, I was able to break through that. So that was part of things that triggered my curiosity into exploring the neurodivergent world. So in fact, being neurodivergent doesn't mean a child is incapable. It doesn't mean they cannot learn. It doesn't mean their future is limited. It's just that their brains simply take in, process, and express information differently. And that difference should not be grounds for exclusion, no matter what. Some of these children never get the chance to discover how gifted they are. Because if given the opportunity, their attention to detail, I'll say, is exceptional. Anybody that's worked with them would attest to that. Their pattern recognition skills are superb, and they have unique audiovisual memory different from their neurotypical peers. So for these children, all these challenges go beyond childhood. because when they're unable to complete secondary school, as it is in most cases with learners with cognitive disabilities in Nigeria, they tend to, develop functional and they lack functional and communication skills. Their self-esteem is weak. Their chances of living independently in the future is limited. And then talking about employment, that possibilities are very, very narrow. And that hinders their ability to participate meaningfully in the society. So, in a world where technology is becoming the gateway to education, healthcare, communication, banking, and governance, for them, digital inclusion becomes social inclusion and economic inclusion exclusion, sorry. Digital exclusion becomes social exclusion and economic exclusion for them in the long run. When we talk about inclusive education, we're not talking about kindness. We're talking about their survival, their dignity, their rights, and their future. And their parents, on the other hand, they are left to navigate life with confusion, stigma, judgment, and fear of for the future of their own children. So why do we keep building education systems that leave so many behind? I'll say that's why I founded this foundation to reimagine learning through the lens of inclusion, technology, and dignity. Our vision at Fatima's Inclusive Learning Foundation is a Nigeria where every child, regardless of their ability, can thrive through digitally inclusive education. And for us, inclusion means creating a world where every learner belongs. It's about recognizing that no two minds work the same. And that's not a flaw, it's a form of brilliance in its own way. About the foundation, we started small with a dream and a research question, but today, with your help, it's going to become a movement. Our mission focuses on three pillars. We aim to provide inclusive educational technology through developing adaptive mobile learning tools tailored for neurodiverse learners. We hope to equip teachers, parents, and volunteers through community awareness and training to better support these children with cognitive diversity in our societies. And then we also at the core of our work is to turn evidence into action through policy and advocacy. Through policy advocacy and research to help transform Nigeria's education system to be as inclusive as it can be. Our goals are to train 100 plus teachers and caregivers in a year, reach up to 500 neurodiverse learners through our inclusive learning software, launch our awareness campaign in up to 10 communities or even more, and then mobilize up to 30 trained volunteers across Nigeria. And that's where you all come in as volunteers, as our digital inclusion ambassadors and learning allies for these children. You're going to be the face and heart of this community. And at the core of our programs, before I walk you through that, I will want to remind us that everything we do at Fatma's Inclusive Learning Foundation for Children will be guided by one central belief, which is inclusion should be built into the foundation of education, not as an afterthought. Because as it's obvious, the fundamentals of educational policies in Nigeria consider inclusivity as an add-on. After everything has been done, that's when inclusivity is considered. But we aim to have it as a foundation built into the fundamentals of educational policies. So our programs are designed to address a real gap in Nigeria's education system while creating pathways for neurodiverse learners to succeed like every other neurotypical peer. And at the heart of our work is the digital learning platform. That tool is specifically designed for neurodiverse learners with visual aids, audio support, localized content, and simplified interface to make learning accessible for children with autism, Down syndrome, and other developmental disabilities, neurodevelopmental disabilities particularly. And what makes it special is that it's co-created from the origins of it. We engaged teachers, parents, caregivers, and learners themselves to come up with the requirements to build this platform. So the platform isn't just for them, but it was built with them. And when we design for inclusion, it means we design for everyone. And the next thing in our core programs is the teacher and parents training. That's the second pillar of our work. It focuses on empowering those that teach these children to care for that care for these children and teach them. in person of the teachers and the parents. We aim to organize online virtual workshops to help them understand cognitive diversity and then apply inclusive teaching strategies in everyday learning environments for these children. The program ensures that inclusion doesn't stop at home because it engages the parents as well. It continues at home, in community centers, and in every learning space. We also have the volunteer program. That's where you come in. Through this program, we are building a network of digital inclusion ambassadors and learning aids with community awareness advocates. You'll be working directly with teachers, schools, and families to help learners engage with our software, support community outreach, and spread awareness about inclusive education. And you, as the volunteers, would be the connective tissue. You are the ones that will bring our values to ground and life. Fourthly, we have the awareness and advocacy campaign. When we talk about these disabilities, there's a lot of stigma attached to them. Parents are forced to mostly hide the children at home, not because not even it doesn't even stay with adults bullying these children. Even their peers, when they tend to attend mainstream schools, they get bullied by their peers in many cases. So that actually affects them negatively. It makes them doubt their self-esteem and everything. So our aim is to achieve that through public forums, with school visits to sensitize these children, through social media campaigns, storytelling from the parents and children that have these conditions, and hosting community events. We're going to challenge that stigma and reshape public understanding of cognitive disabilities. And with that, I hope we spark a national conversation on that, one that replaces exclusion with empathy, ignorance with awareness, and pity with partnership. And the final core of our programs are the research and policy engagement aspects of it. That this aspect of it connects everything we do to systemic change. So as a foundation that is rooted in research and innovation, we'll work with universities, policymakers, and development organizations to generate evidence that shapes inclusive education policy in Nigeria. And with our software pilots, we're going to gather data from the workshops. We gather data and use it to influence policies that make digital learning more equitable and accessible. This ensures that Fatima's Inclusive Learning Foundation's impact isn't temporary, it's institutional. Our work is paving way for a future where inclusive digital education is part of the national framework. So together we can see that these 5 programs form a complete circle of impact, from technology to training, from awareness to advocacy, from classrooms to policy. So that gives a basic overview of what the foundation is about. And I would like to thank you and appreciate you for joining again. And before we go on, I would like to especially welcome and appreciate our speakers. We have our keynote speaker, Festus Adedoyin, who is a senior lecturer in computing and informatics at Bournemouth University. He is also the supervisor of this PhD. And then we have Muhsin Jega, who is a clinical psychologist and founder of Cambridge Services in Abuja. We have Hajia Safia Atamansur, the founder of Glowing Star Empowerment Initiative, who thank you so much for honoring this vision and this work. And to everyone that showed up, thank you very much for showing up with that openness, curiosity, and commitment. Thank you. So once again, you're all welcome, and we're grateful you're here. I would like to invite our keynote speaker, Dr. Festus, to deliver his address. And as we all know, Fatima's Inclusive Foundation grew out of my doctoral research. And as a supervisor of that project, he's greatly shaped how this project has turned out to be. He's challenged it and he's strengthened it through his mentorship. Thank you for your consistent support, Dr. Festus, and guidance. Your encouragement and trust in this work, your mentorship reminds me that inclusion also means making room for ideas and new voices, and you've done that with so much generosity. Please go ahead to give us a deep dive into the intersection of research, technology, and inclusive education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I just confirm that you can hear me loud and clear? Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, we can. Thank you. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share this keynote speech this morning. My name is Festus Adedoyin. I am a senior lecturer in the School of Computing and Engineering here at Bournemouth University. I lead our data analytics pathway programs, and I also supervise 6 doctoral candidates at our university, of which the CEO and founder of Fatima's Inclusive Learning Foundation, Fatima Ahmed Mazu, is one of the candidates. This research has shown much importance in terms of bridging the gap between mainstream education and learners with cognitive disability, particularly with the use of technology to serve as a tool that could help streamline and bring that and bridge that gap. What I want to talk about mainly starts from the perspective of the understanding of how awareness has been created in many contexts. Have you ever wondered if you meet someone and then you think, why is this person behaving this way? Have you ever asked yourself, maybe you met somebody, you felt they were different from what you see as normal? It happens to many of us. You go in the marketplace, you go to the shops, to the malls, you drive past, you see somebody, you walk past, and you're thinking, why is this person behaving this way? The reason you have that thought most times is because you have a standard of norm, what you think is normal. And you expect that if somebody behaves outside what you see as normal, then that person is abnormal, or that person is behaving abnormally. And so the problem starts because we already have a standard that we see as normal. And that's what we do here at one of the goals of Fatima is to re-examine how we conceptualize normal. And it's because of our conceptualization of normal, what we see as normal, this is the normal way people should behave, that is where exclusion starts from. So as soon as somebody begins to act outside of the norm, exclusion starts in your imagination. You feel, well, maybe they don't fit into this description. Maybe they need a separate, and that at that point you begin to, exclude. And that's where the job we do in terms of awareness. That's where we talk about cultural differences, but also creative differences and how people conceptualize things. And within this keynote, I want to talk about the problem. I want to talk about the what it is that we're looking at. I'll also talk about the why, and then I'll talk about the how. So the what is our understanding of normal, and redefining what we see as normal, and maybe expanding our normalcy a little bit to include certain definitions. So regardless of what you have seen and conceptualized as normal, including people, expanding your definition of normal to include people with cognitive disability as well. And that's where inclusivity starts from. We begin to think about, okay, we define normal as this. So as soon as you're a 5-year-old, you're based in Abuja or in Nigeria, 5-year-old should be able to read 10 times table, right? 5-year-old should be able to run. 5-year-old should be able to talk clearly. 5-year-old should be able to ask questions. All those definition and standard that we've set, we expand those standards a little bit to include other people who may seem to not fit into our definition. And that then begins to affect teachers, policymakers. Our definition begins to expand. Teachers begin to expand their definition of normal. You know, Parents begin to expand their definition of normal because, just to touch on parents a little bit, if you are a parent, a dad and a mom, for example, and you have, let's say, for example, you have 4 children, right? Recently, I read something somewhere, and I realized the person was explaining that no sibling ever was ever raised by the same parent. And that's very confusing. But what that really means is if you have 4 children, you and your wife, the first child will be trained by a certain type of dad and mom at certain level. Maybe you've just got a job, you started life, maybe you don't have abundance at that point. When the second child comes, the dad and mom have evolved a little bit. Again, let's say in 2 years, in 3 years. When the third child comes, the dad and mom has also evolved. What that person is saying is the definition of daddy and mommy at various points for different children evolves over time. So no sibling was actually raised by the same kind of parent because the mindset, the maturity, the level of work, income, family status, friendship, all of that changes for the parent for each child. And that means you can't raise, the first child the way you raise the sixth child. It's very different. And so when we see the definition being expanded, even by the parents, then we realize that inclusivity is really bigger than what we imagine. So parents, teachers, government, even at the local level, to the state level, to the federal level, inclusivity evolves over time because all the parties involved have to redefine or expand their definition of normal. And that's the what we are talking about when we talk about inclusivity. Now, let's talk about the why. The why is it's not just what we should do as a standard or for religious purposes or for being humans generally. As humans we have to get, that's not just the why. The why is because every child deserves, if you're religious, for example, you'd know that everybody is created, and there is a reason, and they're important, if not to you, but they're important to who has created them. And so it's really essential that our humanity kicks in and we contribute by solving problems. And it's not just for the why. Why the why is not just doing it for the sake of charity or NGO or religious purposes. It's also because there is dignity to every human life. And so that why will be a driver. And so the how in this project is to use technology. Obviously, there will be awareness, which is what we are doing at this first inaugural welcome. But the how is technology, which I want to spend a bit more time. How do we want to do this inclusivity in this case, right? There's so many things people do. I've seen, when I was growing up, I'll just give you a bit of a story. I lived on a street where and this was probably in the 1990s. We grew up in a street where if you walk past, there's this particular house you walk past, you just hear this voice of it. You just hear there's a child in that house. And we never knew. I was just a child. I never knew. So I asked my mom, do they have, is a child living in that house? Or it was growing up, we were then told that there's a child that has a disability living in that house. And that child, nobody, I never saw this child. For more than 15 years, I never saw the child. I never saw, there was nothing like, going out to the playground or going for a walk or having exposure to sunlight. And that triggered a lot in me to think, but this isn't right. This isn't right. There's no dignity. Here you don't cover up, the life and cover up, and that built my curiosity to say, how can we create solutions? Not just religious solutions or emotional solutions or political solutions, but more technological solutions that are not expensive but can include people in mainstream education. So people can go to school, they could have math and English read, there could be some sort of devices, some funding available to make certain devices available for use, that would include and keep the brain active and keep the family engaged. And that is the how we are talking about at Fatima's Inclusive Learning Foundation. And I'm very pleased to be part of the team. And one of the things I also wanted to mention about the research component is that when we build a technological solutions, we are intending that this solution will be co-created. So co-created with the parents, with the teachers, and with the designers as well. In some of my research in the past, we built something from somewhere, maybe from the UK, or maybe from China, or maybe from America, or maybe from Dubai or something, and then we go ahead and implement it in a low resource context, and it's just implementation. It's not really unique to the cultural context of where we are implementing that solution. So the how is technology, but the desire is to ensure that this is context specific. So the contribution of the parents to see what exactly would you like to find in a digital solution that will enhance the well-being of your child. What feature? Oh, I would like this feature. It should be easily accessible. It should use low data. Perhaps the battery life, it should take a week. Should last long. Should have solar. Should be able to be solar panel powered. And by the time you start asking these questions, the parents begin to suggest requirements within the design of the software, and begin to give ideas around this is what would work for us in our own family context. Or, for example, oh, we have this one child and it's just, has a special need or has some cognitive disability, and we are aware, and mom and dad work full time, for example. And so, yes, we have help within the household, but the help isn't very literate or has the literacy to certain level. That information is needed for a designer, for a software engineer, for us as a research team here at the university to be able to create something that is unique to that context. Or we have a family where, there are four children, dad and mom, and they both work full time, but the middle child has some needs, but the older child is available to help, and there's that support. Then we need a bit more high tech level, and that all these information feeds into the design and development of the solution, the technology, which is the how that we are bringing in as a contribution. Then moving on from the parents, we speak to the teachers as well. So, oh, you teach, you're a psychologist, you're a clinical psychologist, or at a school, a mainstream school or a special needs school, or you're just a teacher, you have, 60 children you look after within a class, primary one or year six, maybe, GSS3, for example. And you have, two or three children who you think are really struggling, but you're really passionate about them. You think if there is a solution, a technological solution that has this feature or that feature, those children can be included in their junior WAEC or something like that. And you could tell us what we can include or how else we could capture the design. And that would be great for us as a research team. And that is the how that we're talking about. And finally, we have, one of our keynote speakers, been in the medical space as well. It helps to be able to ask questions around, oh, you're a clinical psychologist. Do you think, for neurodivergent children, do you think this kind of solution, if we were to design something, what would you like to see? How would you like to say it? Even up to the point of color, use color blue, use color pink, use green, use white, or some are color blind. All these data that we collect informs the design. Even though we have a prototype, I think Fatima will be sharing that down the line in some of our training sessions down the line for teachers and parents. Um, Even if we have certain prototypes, we could get feedback on those prototypes, which again we have events planned out in 2026. We'll be rolling out our timetable. Fatima will be talking into that down the line. Then we could collect data to say, we still need feedback on whether these tools are applicable or not. And even within Nigeria, because we're just starting with Nigeria, I've spoken to Fatima over the planning. There are other contexts like Ghana, like Malawi, like Zimbabwe, like Uganda, Rwanda, South Africa, where these solutions can be rolled out even within sub-Saharan Africa. But even within Nigeria, when we look at Abuja, Abuja has its unique context, its local context. If we take the same solution and we take it to Abia State or Enugu State, for example, we might find a slight difference in cultural context as well. And what we are saying is, we speak to the teachers, we speak to the clinical psychologists, we speak to the parents within this context, and the solution continues to grow. And it's not just, dashing out technology, it's also contributing to policy argument, research. Now that we have AI, are there chatbots, are there automations that we could include? What kind of features would help? Voice to text, text to voice. All of these are already available, which we want to implement, but within the unique cultural context of Nigeria and beyond. And so these are some of the things that informs the how that we're trying to build. Teacher training is one area, because at the moment data suggests that a lot of parents, especially within Nigeria, in most cases, rely heavily on teachers. So teachers seems to hold very, very high stake in inclusivity for this context in Nigeria. In other parlance, for example, in the UK, parents are heavily involved. In fact, the responsibility is heavily on the parents, even at the level of the government requirement for children with cognitive disabilities. The parents are required to have a high level of responsibility. Teachers are great as well, but parents are heavily involved, whether mainstream or special needs. But in Nigeria, it's slightly different because at the moment, it seems teachers, some parents even submit their children to teachers and expect that the school system will correct and adjust certain things. And so teacher training for this foundation is really essential. And the engagement will continue, I think, from next week. Fatima will be sharing the plan from next week or upper week. There will be training sessions that the foundation will be holding. So we want to thank you very much. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to give this keynote. Thank you to our speakers, Musin Jega and Alaja Safia. Thank you so much. We can't wait to learn from you and to glean from your experiences. And we know that the foundation will have massive impact down the line. We have only just started. We're not up to 6 months old, but we know that down the line, by the time we have our first year anniversary, second year anniversary, we will be having impact, even if it's just one child, two child, three children at a time. Thank you very much once again, Fatima, for inviting me to give the keynote. Thank you very much once again. Any questions? I'll be in the background in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Festus, for your words and incredible support you've given to both this project and myself. Your insight reminds us that research and community impact must go hand in hand. And that's exactly why what we're trying to build here at Fatma's Inclusive Learning Foundation. So before we move on to the next speaker, I would I want to just acknowledge the presence of I'll say the father of the day. That's my father. Baba, you don't have to say anything. I'll just pin your photo, pin your screen, and yeah, let's just give him a round of applause. You don't have to say anything. I'll see. Okay, I'm trying to. Where is he?
I think we saw him a moment ago.
Yeah, he was, and I'm just trying to locate his yes. Okay, let me just open all the participants and pin him. Yes. I think he was one of the first that joined the session. He's been very eager about the whole thing, and yes. I'll see. Okay. All right then. Okay, I think we can move on. Thank you so much all for the round of applause and everything. So next up we have our first guest speaker, Mohsin, a clinical psychologist who is the special needs coordinator at STEM Childcare Academy, a school based in Abuja, where he designs intervention programs for children with cognitive disabilities. His strategies are tailored to each child's individual needs. In addition, he is the founder of Cambridge Services, a new online therapy platform that provides accessible mental health support to people. You don't have to be present if you're not sure about it. So he's going to share insights into recognizing and supporting diverse learning needs from his lens as a clinical psychologist. Musin, you can go ahead.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, everybody. It's a true pleasure to be here, actually, at this virtual workshop. I want to begin by appreciating the organizers for creating this platform, one that is timely relevant and deeply needed. As educators, you play a powerful role in shaping the lives of children who learn and experience in the world in unique ways. Um, I'm here to talk about something that sits at the heart of inclusive education, which is understanding neurodiversity. Neurodiversity is a simple but powerful idea that there is no single right way for the brain to function, just like how Mr. Festus was saying earlier. Just a gist of it is that it's not one size fits all, right? And just as we celebrate cultural or linguistic diversity, neurodiversity reminds us that we should celebrate people in different ways, meaning the way people think, learn, and communicate. When we talk about neurodivergent learners, children with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and other developmental differences, we're not necessarily talking about deficits. Obviously, we're talking about, you know, what are the other methods that we can get through this person? How can we? Okay, we know that we use plan A for everyone else, but should we try B or C or D? Things like that. We're talking about the different patterns of strength, challenge, and perception. Every child's brain tells a different story, and as teachers, we have the privilege of learning that story and helping it unfold. But to be honest, teaching in our context isn't always easy. Many of us face overcrowded classrooms, limited materials, and little or no training in supporting children with special needs. And I know this from personal experience because where I work at, we know how we have to basically train the teachers. You never really stop training anyway, but to have people understand what they need to do in cases like that is something quite challenging. And if you have, let's say, people that are not, you know, well trained, it diminishes or it reduces from what can be done very efficiently and effectively. Um, I think the idea of technology really helps with that because most people nowadays, as it is the era of technology, may find it most easy to actually contribute in some way. So sometimes we also face misunderstanding from parents or colleagues who see these learners as problems rather than people. But despite these challenges, we have to just show up, be ready to teach, nurture, and include, which makes people that do that the heroes of inclusive education. But all in all, inclusive or inclusion begins with understanding, understanding a child's behavior, or understanding that a child's behavior is often, communication. So when a child struggles to sit or to focus or to express themselves, it is not defiance. It is often a message. The child may be saying, "I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious, I need help to understand this in a different way." So our task usually is to listen, not only with our ears, but with our empathy. Because once we understand what a child is trying to say through their behavior, we can begin to teach in ways that truly reach them. An inclusive classroom is one where every learner feels seen and valued. It's where lessons are flexible, visuals are used to support understanding, and mistakes are treated as part of growth. It's where teachers design lessons that meet different needs using strategies from universal design for learning, offering multiple ways for children to engage, learn, and express what they know. Now, I mentioned technology earlier. Technology, when used thoughtfully, is actually one of the greatest allies of inclusion. It gives us the power to adapt lessons instantly and reach learners in ways that were once impossible. For a child who struggles with reading, for example, and I think Mr. Festus also highlighted this earlier, a text to speech software can bring words to life. For one who has difficulty writing, voice typing allows free expression. Interactive and gamified tools can sustain, attain, and make learning fun. So simple visuals made with PowerPoint, Canva, or Google Slides can actually help structure lessons and reduce anxiety for children who depend on routine. Digital tools also make it easier to personalize learning. So what we do in schools, especially with kids with special needs, is the IEP. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the IEP, which is the Individualized Education Plan. We try to assess a child and provide them with the support that they need. So we have this saying in ABA. We say that if you meet an autistic child, you only met one autistic child, meaning that every child is different, right? So after assessment, typically what happens next is that you come up with an IEP, the Individualized Education Plan, which supports the child, and then after every trimester, you try to review, you see what percentage of the IEP has been actually achieved. So using digital tools in this regard actually makes a lot of the process much easier. Understand? Because nowadays you already have tools out there, that help out with certain things like the text to speech we're talking about, or the voice typing, for people that are non, verbal and things like that. So when you have personalized learning, what with digital tools, what you do is you adjust pace, difficulty, format according to each child's needs. Video and audio lessons and also interactive quizzes provide alternative ways for learners to understand the same concepts. And for non-verbal or minimally verbal learners, communication apps can give them something priceless, which is a voice. Technology doesn't replace teachers. No, it doesn't really, but it amplifies what great teachers already do. It helps us save time, track progress, and create materials that engage every learner. Above all, it bridges the gap between potential and opportunity, helping each child access education in ways that works best for them. And at the heart of this, in the whole inclusion process, would be psychology, which is the science of human difference. Research shows that when learners feel accepted, they become more motivated, more confident, and more willing to take part in learning. Inclusion is not about putting all children in the same classroom. It's about ensuring that every child, regardless of ability, finds belonging and purpose in that space. So, well, I've encountered, I think, multiple scenarios. Let's say where I work, where so I have a shadow. So we do this thing where we pair a child. So the next step after the IEP, as I was saying earlier, would be if it's necessary for what we call a shadow teacher to be with the child and go around and assist them with things in academia and things like that. Then we provide one, but um, even with that, the class structure tends to be a little bit, not so favorable, sometimes depending on how attentive the teacher is or how trained, how well trained they are. And you see that sometimes a teacher comes into the class and then, he doesn't even acknowledge the presence of either the child, that is the special child, or the shadow himself or herself. So what we don't know is that children actually crave our attention 90% of the time anyway, and even if they're not directly showing it in ways that um, are clear to us. So that little action of that teacher could actually demoralize and demotivate the child from partaking and participating in class. But I've also seen the reverse, where a teacher is being overly active and engaging the child even if the child doesn't say much, and then you see the child actually even if not verbally or vocally, you would see them physically just being a little bit how would I say, hyper, just enjoying the class in their own ways. So when I think it was Dr. Fatima or Mr. Festus that spoke about teachers training, I really resonated with all of that, because I believe that those are some of the foundational things that we need to do. I believe that teachers from now onwards to the future should actually have that as I don't know if they're doing that already, and I know some schools do that, but I mean, formally on a governmental level, the teachers should go through those trainings so that whenever they come across such a child or, whatever, they can actually know what they need to do. And yeah, when we understand neurodiversity, we don't just make room for difference, we make education more human. And every small adjustment, every act of patience, every creative solution you offer changes the story for a child who might otherwise have been left behind. And I want to say that I believe in this so much because I recently had a small experience with a hospital that I went to for some collaborative process, and all they were interested in is just subjecting clients or whatever to drugs and making them feel better. I am against that unless when necessary. I believe there are many, many ways that we can reach to these individuals and make their life much easier and far better without using drugs. And that's why I believe in this vision. So let's keep building classrooms that reflect the world we want, a world that values every mind, every voice, and every way of learning. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. Your voice is you're muted.
Thank you so much, Hussein. Thank you. Like, this is a very insightful speech. I can see from the comments are bubbling. Thank you. I know our audience have a lots of questions, interesting questions to ask, but I sincerely apologize. We'll save the questions and observations for later. Thank you, Hussein, for touching the lives of these very important young people. Thank you. So, however, you can still, to the audience, you can still drop your questions and observations in the chat, and we'll duly take note of them and come back to them after all speakers have presented. So, next up, we have our next guest speaker, Hajia Safia Atta, the founder of Glowing Star Empowerment Initiative and Development based in Jos, Plateau State. This foundation provides inclusive education, free healthcare, advocacy and empowerment programs to support children with disabilities, caregivers and families. And she's happy to give us a reflection on grassroots inclusion and practical learning strategies. Ma, you can go ahead to start presenting.
Okay,
Thank you so much for joining us.
you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, everyone. I'm Safia Atta Mansour, the founder of Glowing Star Empowerment Initiative and Development. And I'm happy to be here with all of you this morning. Starting Glowing Star Empowerment Initiative is also personal to me because I have a niece that has cerebral palsy. And over the years, I have worked with them through the challenges of, growing up. She's 10 years old now, and it has not been easy. So when I got I got, your contact to talk to you about digital inclusion, digital awareness for neurodiverse children, I was very happy because I realized that it's one of the things that we need. I started this NGO just in February. I got registered in March. And I started a journey that I did not know where it was going to take me to. I never realized it was as intense as it is from all that you have said, all that Festus said, and what we just heard the doctor say. One of the things I've noted is the fact that, we have to take it down, you said grassroots. Some parents don't even know what is wrong with their children to start with. That is an area that we are now trying to, every time, set up an awareness talk so that we can engage them, talk to them about what is wrong. Well, in quote, what is wrong with the children? Your child is hyperactive. Well, you don't know that the child has autism. And then you have a child that is 2, 3, 4 months old, 5 months old. All the milestones are not being reached. They can't sit and they cannot do a lot of things that other children can do. And you're wondering what is wrong. It's important that we talk about these things because honestly, every child matters, their voices matter, and they have a voice. I can tell you this from my own niece. She cannot talk very well, but she is able to voice out anything that she wants to voice out. If you do anything, Nasira will tell you that she has a way of gesturing and making you know that this person did something that they were not supposed to do. They are that interesting. Now, the challenge we're having is within the community, there is stigmatization. before we even get to talking about, education, the stigmatization, I want you to know that a lot of these children don't have access to education because, like you rightly said from the beginning, they are at home. The parents are not able to take them out because when you take them out, you have negative comments about the children, how they look, how they act. Why is this child like this? And I can also let you know that there are some schools that have made an effort to say, bring in these children. We'll see what we can do for these children. But parents will come and say, is it because of this child that you people cannot keep our children upstairs? You're keeping them downstairs because of this child. The child is on a wheelchair. The child cannot go upstairs. And most schools don't have the facility, the infrastructure to accept these children. So it becomes a problem. Now, I would want a situation where, when you're talking about inclusion, true inclusion, where the community will see these neurodiverse children as capable learners, contributors, and a situation where empathy comes to play, not sympathy, because it is about giving them opportunity. We have been encouraging parents to come out. First, they need to come out. They need to bring these children out. They need to bring them out, but we also are engaging with government and some other stakeholders to say, when these children come out, how do they access education? The schools mostly will not take them because they don't have the facility, they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the digital awareness is not there, the digital tools are not there for them to use. And if the schools are to go into this, you discover that we're talking resources. We're talking about resources. There are lots of things that they want, for instance, as an NGO, they want us to do. And we're like, look, we cannot do all of these things. We have to partner with a lot of people, doctors, schools, the government, to see how we can bring their situation to fore, for everybody to understand that these people have a voice and we should listen to them. You said something very important earlier about, the fact that there is a need for, government intervention, yes, but the parents coming out and telling us that, look, this is what we need, is also very critical. So in making reference to the research, there is a need for us to know how. There are facilities out there are tools out there that a lot of teachers, parents don't know how, caregivers, they don't know how to utilize them. I know that as an NGO, a school has reached out to us to say we need digital training for, that's even the school of the deaf. And I told them that I can only reach out to people to get in touch with you to do the training. We don't have that facility right now. So it's a good thing that you're coming up with this. We're going to be able to collaborate, we work together and see how the teachers, caregivers can get this training to help every other school out cheap devices. You talked about battery life and all of that. Because even in the town, it's not easy utilizing these facilities. So that's something that we need to really talk about. So when we're talking about the how, you have a lot of things that can be used. Speech to text, like you said, and all of that. I don't want to go into that. What I want to talk about is that in most schools, access is limited, especially in the rural areas and the low resource settings. So many teachers and parents may not know how to use or even access these tools. Nasira has a tablet that she uses, but most times it's the speech to text and all of that that we utilize, and then she listens to it and she's able to play one or two games on it. But I'm sure that that facility can do much more than that. We need to be able to utilize such facility for those that can even afford it, to use it, to use it effectively. You understand? So there is that aspect. There's also the aspect of, training for our teachers. Educators need capacity building on, how to integrate digital tools into special education. We could also have affordable devices, internet access, so they can use some of these gadgets offline, for instance, and maybe sometimes have access to low-cost laptops where they can use some of these things offline. And these facilities and devices can be introduced in some schools. There are a few schools that could afford such, not all. Now, the government and NGO support comes in the area of partnership, providing funding, creating awareness, and advocating for, policy change, policy support for inclusive digital education in our educational system. Then the aspect of local content. In all of this, we need to be able to bring it down to the languages, languages, Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, and all of that. There are I know some people that have cartoons in Yoruba and Hausa, just to drive the learning. That would go a long way in helping us to achieve, our goals. So, like I said, the digital learning, when it's inclusive, will give every child, a voice, a chance to shine. So using the right tools, training, support, will be able to help all children with cognitive disabilities to learn and strive along with their peers. They enjoy studying. Some of them are slow, yes, but they strive in the company of others. When we're talking about inclusive education, they strive in the company of others. Recently, Nasira was not in school for like 2 days, and the children have been asking after her and saying, we need Nasira to be in school. We need Nasira to be in school. So you see that love from the children gives them an encouragement that makes them want to also stand out, make them also want to just be like every other person. So we need to respect their right to access to education. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you so much.
You're
So I'll
welcome.
just give like a brief recap between what Mohsin said, what you said, and tie it down to what I and Dr. Festus have been working on. So I
Okay.
liked how Mohsin said, every child's brain tells a different story. Even and when we talk about that, we're not limiting ourselves to just children with disabilities. Even a neurotypical child, you can't have two children that process information the same way. The so-called slow learners we tag in schools, like we just tag somebody a slow learner. It's not necessarily that person is not necessarily a slow learner. It's probably he has like a preferred way of consuming learning content. You know, learning styles differ between amongst children. Some prefer visuals, some react better to audio instructions. So I like how he said it, like every child's brain tells a different story. So you look at a book altogether, but every child sees that book differently in a different shade and a different color entirely. And then it's amazing from your story with about Nasira, it's amazing how it's our personal stories that are shaping what we do, our vision. That goes a long way, it's beyond any financial gratification or anything, it's that fulfilling sense of purpose. And thank you for that. And Musin mentioned about the absence of a lack of individualized educational plans, the IEPs. So that thing actually I think is one of the main things that's missing in Nigerian education. Like even in our normal schools, we tend to handle all students, with a one size fits all. We throw content at everybody the same way. Without, and it's not helping matters how we have like the students to teacher ratio, it's very bad. You can have up to 40 students or pupils in a class. So that's also not helping matters. The education system as it is stretched. So thinking of waiting for the government to come in and intervene for children with these cognitive disabilities, I think is not a solution, because the education, as we all know, is trained to the maximum. So we're at the moment, Nigeria is trying to, figure out, mainstream education as a whole. So who even has the time to give attention to, people with the cognitive disabilities? Because their disabilities are mostly not physical, apart from the ones that have mobility issues and comorbidity, like cerebral palsy. You can hardly tell, or Down syndrome that is sometimes visibly present. You can't tell. So as you said, I think accessibility is the main thing. Infrastructural accessibility in schools is also the main thing, because you don't have, I wonder, um days ago I saw this video from a comedian, but she made what she said, like, stuck with me. She talked about how inaccessible Nigeria is, how, like, from some things as basic as transporting yourself from your house to a hospital as a disabled person. You can't use the public transport because the buses are not accessible. It's either you use your wheelchair, roll yourself over there, or you are rich enough to own a car to be driven there. So things as basic as that, we overlook the presence of this kind of people in our society. So I think the main thing is having that accessible infrastructure in schools. And then on the part of parents coming out, I'll say I'll testify to that, because when I came for my data collection, you know how research is, you plan things and they don't go the way you planned. So initially I wanted to engage parents, teachers, and special education specialists in these schools. But unfortunately, I didn't get a single parent to agree from those schools I went to. You understand? Because like the vulnerability there, and I totally understand where they come from. So one of the psychologists just encouraged me to go ahead without them, but he was very certain that if I end up having like a tangible outcome at the end of the day, they'll be willing to come out for me. And I've seen that with the turnout of people to this event. It's really disturbing how, researchers keep reaching out to them, collect data, and don't return anything. Don't give them anything in return. So that's like, they feel used. I agree. They feel used to a large extent. Feeling coming out of your home, coming to meet a person, and it's not that they're meeting you genuinely. They just want to get this data or get something from your perspective and then just disappear and never come back with impact. I think that goes a long way in determining how willing they'll be to be there to come out and share their perspectives. So you talked about the speech to text, capacity building, the low cost laptops. So along the line, the next thing I would do is talking about my PhD particularly, and how it's capitalizing on mobile learning, because we have a very high proliferation of mobile devices in Nigeria as it is. It's more cost effective than purchasing laptops for centers. It's easier. And then with the I know data is expensive. So what we were trying to do with the application is try to make it as less resource intensive as possible, to the minimal, where it's going to work offline if possible, where the need arises. And then we're not having so much, jam pack of visuals and audios all in the place. Like, it's a mix of, okay, we have contents in chunks. We don't just put everything, we didn't just put everything out there. Yeah. And for the text to speech, we have the reading aspect of the application. It leverages on that text to speech. Particularly it's going to be useful for learners with dyslexia, I'll say, but even neurotypical learners can gain advantage from the application. So moving on. Um, I'll say thank you so much. I haven't thanked you for the work you've been doing in the community to ensure that every child deserves dignity, opportunity, and a chance to shine. So lastly, before we open the floor for engagement with all of you wonderful guests, I'll just give you a brief overview. I promise I'm not going to bore you with long research discussion. It's just a brief overview of my PhD and the digital learning platform we are developing. And the focus of my PhD is on inclusive digital learning for children with cognitive and neurodevelopmental disabilities through mobile learning technology. And I just said it, why mobile learning? It's because mobile phones are the most widely available digital devices in Nigeria. Though there are not a lot of mobile learning applications out there, but you hardly find, one that's fitted to the Nigerian context in terms of, recognizing these cognitive disability needs. There is accessibility in many web applications or mobile applications, but mostly they tend to address the physical impairment side of things, just like our education system. But so you hardly find one that considers the needs of children with cognitive disabilities, and you hardly find ones that are, suited to the dynamic sociocultural grounding of Nigeria and our low resource, our technological resource limitations. So as part of my research, I conducted a focus group discussion with teachers, psychologists, and special education specialists. And one thing I noted was most special schools, my intention was to go out to reach out to special schools. But when I got there, I realized that they hardly dealt with children with cognitive disabilities. So the education for these children is mostly, on the necks of NGOs that go out of their way to open. They get maybe a building or a block of 2 or 3 classes in mainstream schools. They now open a special education center. So that's how their education goes by. So most special education schools in Nigeria are not designed for these needs. So it's these centers that are owned by the NGOs where you find, only one teacher or two trying to support, children with different ranges of disabilities, different abilities, different age groups, and you can imagine how overwhelming it would be for a teacher. And then the fact that these special centers are segregated, they are not part of the mainstream. There's because of mostly that fear of bullying from their peers. They are highly isolated, and this also deepens their social exclusion for them in the long run. So the child is cut off academically, socially, emotionally, psychologically, and from, at the long run, the opportunity to belong and contribute meaningfully to the society. So I met with the teachers, and the core challenges they talked about was their main thing was having that up to, let's say, 20 children in a class. It's really hard to try to identify what motivates this learner and separate it from what motivates another learner. So it's that was quite a challenge for them. You don't know what keeps the learner interested in learning, and at what point do they reach that boredom or frustration level. And because many of these children have emotional instability in most cases as a result of their disabilities, they're more likely to get frustrated easily with learning. So they have that challenge of trying to manage or regulate their emotions at the same time, keeping them interested in learning. And then the next thing that was worrying for them was understanding, the preferred learning style of the pupils. Like, does a child prefer visual content to auditory, or do they prefer hands-on experience? The kind of aesthetic aspects of learning. There are children that wouldn't do well with just you copying, just dumping notes on them or dumping audio. They rather, have hands-on experience, work on something with their hands. And that shows how unique their brains are configured. And then another thing was, determining how severe or how much a disability has impacted the executive functioning of a learner, their emotions and their sequencing and all those memory abilities for them. The other one was knowing for children with cerebral palsy, not all of them are capable of, consuming core academic curriculum. Some of them just require functional life skills, like just having, knowing to navigate around town themselves, things like knowing how to transact with money, buy something and get their change back. Some just need, just that to survive, to make their lives better. And yeah, and basic communication skills, something we take for granted. Some of them just need that, how to communicate and connect with people around them. And the main thing that's affecting both parents and teachers, is the affordability of screening resources and therapy in the long run. it's very expensive and out of reach for them. So that's why many parents, either sought to, to herbal remedies and then just clinging on to hope that something gets better, because these tools are really expensive and out of reach. So that's another addition to the inaccessibility for this category of learners. And the main thing is the digital literacy gaps. We know there are lots of digital tools available to help intervene for these children. But it's a different thing, when the teachers are there, but because of the kind of tight schedule they run, they hardly have the, spare time to go through, continuous professional development to develop themselves in certain aspects. It's quite overwhelming for them. So, but having, something that's coming, through a mobile phone, making it mobile for them, I think it's going to go a long way. And there's the lack of community supports largely. And Hajia has pointed that out. So for my project, what I did was I built on the principles of human-computer interaction, user-centered design principles, which meant that I designed with the teachers, the psychologists, and the learners. I designed with them, not for them. Rather, I had the consideration of what language feels familiar for them, what cultural references am I going to make? If a child is in Kano, for example, you should learn to provide relatable cultural content to them. When you're providing education to them, try to as much to relate that content to their sociocultural background and everything. It makes learning relatable and easier for them. And then we're using a lot of visual aids, necessary, not overstimulating. We're using as much visual aids as necessary, not just too much. And then with minimal colors. And then there's also the ability, for a learner to flexibly go through learning content, to consume content at their own pace. And the activities for emotion regulation, all built in the app. Talking about that, on the aspect of the language we're talking about, for the teachers, apart from the normal training manual we're going to provide them, we're going to have them translated into as many Nigerian languages as possible, as we can get the translators to do, to help ease the understanding of what these things mean to them. We don't just want to just copy and dump these training manuals. We want them to be relatable to these teachers and parents. So the features of the app, I'll say we have the disability support resources, where we added activities like puzzles and sequencing activities to help improve memory load difficulties for these learners, to improve their attention span and processing speed for information, and then emotional self-regulation activities. And then the multimodal learning tools we have there, we have the text-to-speech, particularly for reading out text components in the learning content. And then we have visual flashcards. Some children would hold and retain information that's visual 10 times faster than when it's when it's just a text, or maybe you told them by the word of mouth. And then we have lots of memory games and sequencing puzzles, to always exercise their memory. And then we have the instructions we give, if it's like a reading comprehension, we don't just carry the paragraphs and just dump there. We have them like chunked into just a paragraph at a time to ease consumption for the learners. And in terms of progress reports, the app tracks the preferred learning style of a pupil. It tracks their engagement pattern, like at what part of the day are they most likely to engage with this content, and at what time do they feel, are they less committed to learning. So the app makes sure it keeps tracks of that, and then it also highlights, their strengths and areas they need support. And then on the parts of the resources we have for teachers and parents, the teachers are able to create and manage learning content, to upload worksheets if they like, create and upload worksheets that are accessible. And with the training we're going to give them, we're going to enable them use all those Canva, Figma, and a lot of digital resources to be able to develop digital content that will be uploaded to this system by themselves. And we have the learner management portal where a parent, the psychologist, or everybody concerned with the care of that child is able to access the record of that child on the application. And then also one thing that is on the way of development is the discussion forums. That one is going to bring together people from different backgrounds with different experiences to support one another. Then on parts of both parents and teachers, again, we have access to disability support resources that are externally located. We're not the owners of those resources, but we scouted the web for every resource we think is important or necessary, to improve inclusivity and adjustment, accommodation of diversity in education. We have that added to the platform. And for our software developers, the people that develop mobile apps, we're not necessarily saying you use our app, but for for people that develop applications, it's we have like a heuristic based kind of checklist, I'll say, that gives you, the key considerations to make when you're developing application for people with cognitive disabilities. So all that, hopefully, as Dr. Festus said, it's part of our plan for 2026. Pending on availability of funding, it would be early in 2026 where we'll unveil the application for use. And pending on the availability of the fund, is going to be a physical event where everybody comes together, they use the app for the first time, and then give us feedback on how to make it better. Because I wouldn't say, it's a PhD. I have limited time. I have limited time to, come up with a lot of things. So it's not easy for me to handle the whole lot myself. But with your support, eventually, we're going to get there, make it robust as it should be. So because this foundation isn't built by technology alone, it's built by people like you, people who believe that every child deserves a chance to learn in their own way. So we're going to start this journey by grounding ourselves on, in what we believe. Education should never exclude anyone. So for now, I'll say thank you all for listening with patience. And we're going to open the floor for comments, observations, questions. So I think we'll start by addressing some comments or observations made in the comment section, and then we'll go ahead to let you raise your hand if you have anything to share, or even if it's an experience. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, okay. I think I'll just go from the beginning of the comments. So if you have a question, you can just drop it in the comments or just raise your hand. And while we're doing that discussion, we have dropped a link to a Google form in ways you can participate in this foundation to support our cause. We have places for the need for engaging teachers and special educators. Educational psychologists, somebody just mentioned that you're not forgotten. Apart from clinical psychologists, we're going to engage educational psychologists as much as we can, because I think educational psychology was one thing that further inspired me to go on with this project. So it's going to be a very important aspect we would need to engage with. And then we have the aspects of software developers and digital creators. You're going to help us build this adaptive learning system and education tools. And then if you're a media and communication expert, please help us create awareness and change the public perception through storytelling in whatever ways you can. And for the policy advocates and researchers, please and please, you have to help us influence sustainable long-term inclusion policies across Nigeria. Let's use your voice and the opportunity you have. Let's change the narrative. For parents and caregivers, we solicit your support to join our support networks and our trainers to help us shape this thing. It's not something we own. This is something we have for you. So we need your support to help us shape it to better suit you and your children's special educational needs. And for our volunteer category, we're open to taking club members even students currently in universities or anybody in the community that is interested in supporting or lending a voice. So we have a Google form dropped in the chats section. You can please go through it, fill and submit in areas you think you're you're capable of contributing, or where you feel your support or voice will be heard. Thank you so much. So I'll check the first question. Okay, the last speaker mentioned clinical psychology. I think you also need educational psychology for more effectiveness and seamless activities. Yeah, that's noted, Nafisa Bashir. And I think okay, I think we can just raise your hand if you have questions. We can go from there. If you have any questions for the speakers, we could just open the floor for that. Thank you. Anybody, please? Okay, let's see. The rest of the co-hosts, can you please note if you have any hands raised? Check to see for us,
Hands
please.
raised now.
Okay, no hands for now. Okay, not necessarily questions. I think let's acknowledge the presence of a warrior mom, I'll say. Hadia Fatima Aminu. Can you just give us a word or two if it's convenient for you, please? I call her a warrior mom because yeah, her story is an inspiration.
Hi, good afternoon. Oh, it's not afternoon yet. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I don't know if you can hear me because
We
the
can
place
hear
I
you.
am is a bit cloudy. Okay.
We can
So,
hear you
like
clearly.
she rightly said, Fatima, you're my namesake. My name is Fatima Ahmed Aminu. A lot of people know me as Zara Unscripted. I'm a mom and a caregiver to two special needs children who have different diagnoses. I have a 9-year-old who has cerebral palsy, and then a 5-year-old, beautiful, amazing daughter who has Down syndrome and also is on the spectrum.
Oh.
So I can say I wear a lot of hats. But just to cap it up, I don't want to take too much of your time. Like I said, I'm in a place where it's a bit rowdy. I am an advocate and I run an NGO where we support parents who have special needs children, especially those coming from the underprivileged communities. Parents who are often neglected, who are often unheard, who are often unseen. We actually, more or less, I can say we're like a bridge. We actually fill in the gap between them and access to healthcare, access to nutritious food because we're dealing with a lot of malnutrition, especially in children with cerebral palsy. Um, we support with therapies, we support with their education, we support with assistive devices, and a lot of other things. So basically, I'm happy to be here. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you, Fatima, for having me here. And I also would want to say I am open to collaborating anytime, any day. We need to amplify our voices. We need the policymakers to be on board. I use a lot of storytelling to inspire and to inform and hopefully to transform, to challenge mindsets, to make policymakers understand that we need a lot from them. There's a lot of gap that needs to be filled, and they need to understand the pains and the cries of parents like us. Because we live in a society where we do not have access to social welfare services. You do everything out of pocket. And believe you me, as a mom who has two special needs children, it is expensive. It is not for the faint-hearted. We have seen a lot of parents who resort to, for the lack of a better word, resort to, killing the children because they think that's a form of love because people see love differently. People define love differently. I've had parents who have told me they just want to end it all. I've had parents who have told me families have told them to just kill the child and move on with your life. And it is a lot to take in. So thank you for this platform, and I hope and I pray it yields something bigger for parents like us. Thank you, Fatima.
Amen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Zara, for giving us your time, and I look forward to working a lot more with you in the future, inshallah. Memuna Muaz, go on.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Loud and clear.
Thank you, Fatima, for this beautiful initiative. And regarding to this awareness raising, I think we have a very huge gap to fill. Um, I think 2 days or 3 days ago, I came across a post on social media. So the guy, in quotes, actually, he was advising parents that has those children with special needs, that if you have those kids, he thinks you should end their lives at early stage, because these children grow up to be stigmatized in the society. These children are even a burden to you, and all those kind of stuffs. He said a lot of things, and then I went straight to the comment section to check people's opinion about that. Unfortunately, I read a lot of comments supporting him and giving stories of parents they knew had ended the life of their children with special needs just because of the burden, just because of the stigma. And I I was surprised, like in 2025, really, we still have this mindset. And then that was when a lot of comments supporting him. So he made another video, a second video, saying that, justifying what he said. That, okay, for example, you have a female child and then she has started her period. How do you do it? How does she navigate? How? And that was his justification. And I felt we have a long way to go in the awareness raising. People need to know that these children are not different. As a mother, the pregnancy is not different. The childbearing is not different. You don't love them less than other kids that are normal as a mother. So if you can end the life of a child with special needs, you can end the life of any other person. They are not different. Um, so I think we need to do well by parents sharing their beautiful stories, sharing how unique these kids are, sharing how we can learn from them, because we could also learn from children with special needs. And then you talked about peer engagement, because yes, in school sometimes these children, their peers are the ones who discriminate them, and their children, they do not know how to engage with other kids that they perceive are not normal. So we can actually maybe have engagement programs with the kids where we bring children with special needs and the, in quotes, normal kids. We bring them together and have maybe a painting session, because I know there are children with special needs that are very artistic. And then other kids will get to know that there are things we can do and they can't do, and there are things they can do and we can't do. So it changes their perception towards kids with special need. So that's all I have to say. Thank
Yeah.
you for this.
Thank you. Observation is well noted. I think we've not even started touching the waters when we talk about awareness. We've not touched the waters at all. So we have a long way to go, but inshallah, I think with the turnout in this session, I believe it's a thing that has that's disturbing. It's alarmingly disturbing a lot of people. And I think that's a place to start from. So we have Hawa Bayomi, and then after her, Nefisa Bashir, you can have a go too.
Thank you very much, Fati. Um, I can't get the name of the last person that spoke, but you've spoken most of the things I want to say. But let me add one or two things. It's when it comes to children with special needs, one of the ways we can reach out to them, especially in our country, Nigeria, I think first is to reach out to the parents, try to understand their need. That was why I wrote in the comment section that if we can conduct like a survey, you can create a short survey form. How is their experience? Not just too bulky, You
Yes.
can make it, maybe you can have different option A, B, and C. Let them have option to choose. When you have option to choose, then maybe towards the last question, you can tell them, okay, can you share your experience with us? How has it been for you? When the parents have an open view on how they are feeling, it shows that you are concerned about them. That is one. Then secondly, someone talked about, can't remember who, but you talked about, I think it is you. You made mention of having a mobile phone. To be honest, we're in a country whereby, yeah, children have access to iPad, but not all children can have access to be able to learn some certain things through phone. Because if you go to like a rural area, we have people that they can't even afford 3 square meals, talk more of having a phone. So what are the things that we're going to do to make sure like an event? In the sense that, let's say you create from your survey form, from the survey form you collected, you can narrow it down. If parent wants to be reached, I don't know how you're going to do. Maybe they can drop their phone number if they want to be reached out. We can plan in activities whereby we have like a social disability, because to me, it's not a disability, it's a special need. They need extra attention. Then if they come for that event needs to be heard. Then government needs to be involved. Maybe we have someone at the high level that can be heard, because truth be told, in Nigeria, we have a long gap to be reached. So we need people in the government to be aware, if they can even organize, maybe have like a competition for the special needs, all those kind of a thing, it makes those children to come out of their shell. And it even boost some parents, because when you have one event and it's successful, believe you me, the next event is going to be double. There are a lot of people that have children with special need, but they're shying away from coming out. Just like I think Festus made mention, someone has been locked up for like 15 years, which is sad. That child, some of those children, they are very intelligent. Some of them, they're even like, we have some people that are autistic. They create a lot of genius things. And we are in an agile environment. We are in this era whereby we are dealing with AI, and those children can create a lot of initiative. They are so intelligent, more than you can think, more than let me just say, average children. So those kind of events need to be held. We need people in the government to be involved. And how can we have people in the government to be involved? By creating like a huge event, but we can start like a baby step. Like as I say that I usually have, like, a journey of 1,000 miles always begins with a step. So with that one event, you can create 2 events. From 2 events, you can have 3 events. And the moment we're doing that is to create awareness. You get, but first point of contact, I think it should be the parent. From there, you can now narrow it down. So let me allow other people to talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hawa. Thank you. That's why, we leveraging on the mobile devices. Even if, the government or an NGO is getting involved to supply devices, it's cheaper to have, these Android tablets supplied than, purchasing laptops. So even if it's to the most remote settings, if at all this movement would reach there, then we're hopeful these devices would also reach there, even if it's within the use for classrooms sake, even if you don't get access at home, even if it's within the classroom. That's something we hope to achieve. So okay, we have Nazir Inua. Go on.
Okay, hello, good morning all. Thank you for giving me opportunity to talk. And my name is Nazir Muhammad Inwa. I'm from Federal College of Education Technical Bichi here in Kano. I'm special educator and the instructor, at the same time a PhD researcher on the effect of token economy and the cognitive training on mathematics performance of pupils with attention deficit hyperactivity disorders. And the little observations that I have, two is observations and one is question. And my observation is, since we label this, foundation as inclusive, foundation, so we should be very careful in, labeling our related terminologies. You understand? There are some words that I observed that you are using in the course of explanations are so of, derogatory words when it's come to inclusivity. And secondly, as far as your study is concerned, I want to, give you an insight. Being a instructor and special educator at the same time, for you to have subjects on cognitive needs or subject with cognitive challenges, I think advisably whenever you are undergoing such kind of research, the best place where you will get that your subject is by going to the regular schools. You understand? And second, the question that I have is, I don't know in the course of developing this your app, you have conducted a pilot study, and in the course of that, I don't know whether you have conducted it in some areas like Kano State, where people are very difficult or conservatives, extent to which that they found it, I don't know how can I put it. People that are very difficult in accepting changes. You understand? Sometimes the resources, the availability of resources determine the usability of the resources. You understand? So that is
Yes.
the reason why that I'm asking this question.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
secondly, I don't know, when we are talking about issue of inclusive, we are talking about issue of addressing diversity in all aspects of life, particularly for individual with special needs. Hello, are we communicating?
Yes. Yes. Go on. We're hearing.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. You're clear.
Hello.
We can hear you. Go on. I think we've lost him there. But before he comes back, Dr. Festus, are you there? Going back to what you mentioned about contextualization, when you can't generalize this kind of solutions, really. You can't ever generalize. And Nigeria is a place that, as Dr. Festus earlier said, you can't develop something for Abuja and expect it to work seamlessly in Enugu or in Kano, because
Hello,
the contexts are entirely different. The cultures are
hello.
entirely different.
Yeah,
Hello?
exactly,
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yes.
sorry.
Okay.
Nafisa Bashir has been raising her hand
Yeah, I think
since,
I didn't
and
see her after the other person finished, but I think she would go next, hopefully.
oh,
So
okay.
Naziru, thank you so much for raising your points of observations, and we'll be careful going forward. So that's why we have the most multidisciplinary interdisciplinary connection with people. So it's a learning curve. That's not my area. It's a learning curve for all of us. I have strictly computing background, but I've done some education at postgraduate level actually. So it's a learning curve for me. And then, going
Okay.
into psychology and all that is still things I'm learning with a PhD. So thank you very much for your observations and the
And
question.
lastly, Fatima, my message have been resting in your LinkedIn inbox.
Okay, I'll see to that. I'll check. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Nafisa, can we have you go?
Okay. Good evening. Sorry. Good morning to everyone. And it has been really insightful. I'm happy to be here. Like I said earlier, from experience, I had that I went through something like that. My learners, I've been teaching for a while, but I have not been with little kids. Until then, I realized some kids were actually different. The way they perceive things were different. And that opened my eyes to seeing that these people are not just what we take them to be. So that made me have interest in like seeing more than what others see about them. Okay. And I also want to talk about, and there was a lady who spoke about survey. What I think is in Nigeria here, like you all have been saying, one of the ways to like start, because the gap is too wide, I believe we can start with the parents. Because in Nigeria, there's a lot of work on the teachers more. Like every tension is on the teachers. They want us to do everything on their behalf. So if the parents themselves don't see this as, they don't see the positiveness, they don't see the future in their own kids, regardless of their personalities or differences, we teachers cannot go far as we should, because we are restricted in some aspects. So even if we want to do a lot of things, the parents need to be more aware. They need to also have this love. They need to accept that these children are gifts and they have beyond what they already, like they can also be better. They can also be like every other person. But the parents, when they don't see this happening, it is not going to work, even if the school owners want it to be. So I think we should start with the parent first. And about survey, for a parent who doesn't see, for a parent who can kill their own children, like she said, do you think surveys can work? I don't think they can even give a listening ears to just come and fill a form, you know? It doesn't really make sense. What we can actually try by having like storytelling method, like she said, videos, like telling real life stories, catching their attention, giving experiences that their children can actually make more out of life. Then from there, when there are more awareness and they are seeing that things can actually happen, then we can go into more research and that's what I think.
Yeah,
So
okay.
thank you
I
for the
think
opportunity.
thank you so much. I think Mohsin, I don't know if you can just give us a quick response to, you know, furnish what she's just said in your experience working with this designing learning interventions. I don't know how you see parental support, like the role it plays. Does it significantly hinder progress? And how willing are these parents to come forward to agree to certain interventions you propose for their children? Mohsin? Okay. Okay, okay, mom, you can go ahead if you have something to add to that, please.
Uh, I apologize.
It's
Sorry.
okay. No, it's fine. It's okay.
Yes. I'm sorry. What was the question again? I'm so
No,
sorry
she
about that.
mentioned about, how vital, parental acceptance to the whole changing the narrative we're talking about. How if the parents are not totally on board, how it's going to hinder progress, achieving what we are set to do. So I said in your capacity, you design interventions for these children in school. So I don't know the role
Yeah.
parents play to that. Like how acceptable do they find these things? If you propose interventions, how do they take it? Do they agree that, okay, yes, my child has this, is differently abled in this way or that way? How open are
Okay.
they?
Uh, Oh, well, it depends on their level of knowledge and exposure, and
Okay.
what do you know about these things. I mean, I've had a case in school where um, it's one of those cases where the student was not really, was seeing major signs, right before they joined the school, from other school to our school and things like that. And then the mother was actually too in denial, She was not really accepting of the whole thing. The father was on board and was ready to do everything that needed to be done, to start to work on the matter. But the mother she went about neurodiversity a different way. She was saying that, oh, it's normal for her daughter to behave that way, so we shouldn't do anything about it. You understand that? Just let her be at her own pace. Well, that works to a degree, but you cannot use it everywhere. And so at the end of that, she ended up moving her daughter from the school and things like that. But other parents, like I have two siblings that are actually both autistic. The mother has been there from day one. The mother, if you speak to her right now, you would think that she's a therapist because she joined courses, trainings, and things like that. And so she's always in the picture, always in the picture. So I would say to you that the parents, admitting that there's a problem and then starting to work on the problem is actually very instrumental in making things work out.
Thank you very much for that insightful observation. Mommy, you can give us your input too.
Okay, so I think he just hit the nail on the head. Some parents work with the teachers while some are in denial. And the end of the story is removing the children from the school. We've come across parents like that. And then I also I've been kind of advocating for parents to come out. So we have engaged a lot of parents in the past few months during the World Down Syndrome Day and the recent World Cerebral Palsy Day. So they're coming out. We actually do need a lot of work. You know, we need to do a lot in creating the awareness, let them know that the families have problems. They are not alone. Because the first thing is for them to understand what is wrong with the child. That's the only way they can help.
Yes.
You know, and then when people talk about the children, because they know what is wrong with their children, they are better able to absorb it, repel any advice that does not make sense, because they get this advice is reality. They kill is reality. Economic situation is another reality in their lives. When we're talking about, you know, deploying Android, like for the engagements we have had, I was very happy in the last, the October World Down Cerebral Palsy Day. A lot of them came out. They came out with some of these children. The schools came out with some of these children. We were very happy because it's something that you don't see happening. So I believe that if we all, everybody on this platform, come out and, you know, engage the parents, importantly, step number one, it's important. We talk with them and then we make them understand that their voice matters. You know, they feel the pinch. They are in a better position to tell everybody what they need and how they need it to be deployed to them. And that way they will support the caregivers, they can support the teachers and, you know, the system in bringing up these children and making them available for access to whatever help is out there. But we also want to, going forward in the next year, visit schools, because we realize that there's stigmatization. But you see, with children, it just starts from the beginning. Take first time if you like, first time, second time. But I can assure you by third time, they work with these children, they're happy having them around. You only find out that it's parents that will say, don't go near that child. But with the child, with the heart that they have, they're always open to, you know, welcoming these children to be around them.
Yes.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. And adding to that, you know, I was just replying a direct message in the chat. You know, it's really helpful when we have, rather than have segregated special schools, it's really
Mhm.
important to have our mainstream schools become inclusive. Like
Yes.
in many parts of the world, that's what it's done now. You know, it's rather than segregating them, it keeps alienating them from their peers. And that's when the kids keep thinking these people are not as, you know, typical. They are not neurotypical like us. So I think having inclusive public schools is going to go a long way in addressing the stigma problem we're facing. So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have,
and I apologize. Let me just
okay,
chip in there a
go on,
bit.
go
It's
on,
not
go on.
even just with their peers. I mean, it's about the real world in general. I mean, the entirety of the real world is not a special place. So you might as well subject them, you know, to a bit of the real world while they're younger, so that they can grow to sort of, you know, and just that on the real world. Excuse me, we just have to try our best to sort of, like, you know, create things, you know, like how they make
Yes.
those little thingies for kids with wheelchair and things like that. We need to just shape it a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's beyond their peers. It's just about, you
The
know,
real world.
adapting to the real world. I mean, I remember
Workplaces
one
and
of my
higher education.
professors in university here telling me that that doesn't work at all. It's actually, you know, counterproductive. And I saw that with those kids that I was telling you about. When they left the special school, it's like they had to live life again, you know, from the
Yeah.
beginning. So
Yes.
definitely inclusivity is better.
Yeah. So yeah, it's yeah, it prepares them for, since there's no higher education, especially for special needs, it's the same mainstream higher education they end up going to. So it's better you expose them to that earlier. And then we'll take observations from Asma O Saida, I think Nafisa Baba and Mariam Shehu. We could go really briefly with you people. Go on, please, Asma O. Just really briefly.
Good morning or good afternoon already, everyone. My name is
Yeah.
Asma Yusuf. I'm in Kaduna. I run a dyslexia children's center and library. And I, from the part of parents not understanding, from the parts of getting people to enroll, from the parts of understanding that my child has this difficulty, it's not a disease, so don't worry, she's not going to die or he's not going to die, to the part of saying, okay, yes, there is an intervention, there's regulation that can
Yes.
be done. You could
Yes.
really work on this and then include them back into school. You could make school open up places. You could make them teach multisensory, could make curriculum to fit and suit them. After all, if you teach them the approach way, if you teach them the way you teach dyslexic, everybody benefits. And that's what we use. I started as a dyslexia center. I use the same approach for the few autistic children I have, because you know how autism has more this thing because of all the other comorbidities that comes along with it. And we've seen difference. We've made events. This year we had this event called Colors of Inclusion, where we just wanted every child, regardless of who you are or what your status is, whether you have you're a neurodivergent or you're neurotypical in quotes, you all come there and you go through a whole month of activities. We actually wanted to showcase their strengths, and everybody came there, and there was tech, there was creative, there were those that wanted the hands-on, every single creative thing that you could think of. And we had a boy that joined us last year. He had lost his father, an 18-year-old autistic boy, and we were trying to get what he would like. So we started with the tech, because knowing their brains are that, he didn't like, so many other things. And eventually we stopped on comics. He loved comics. He loved drawings. We worked on that. We got his writings. We collaborated with Mustafa Bulama. We embellished his stories. We printed the book for him to see. And eventually he has agreed to give us 2 years of his life, so we'll work and see that's what he said in his own
That's
words,
really,
so that we'll work and see what he did. And for children with
that's
CP,
truly amazing.
I'm honored to be part of an organization that is delivering play, building a world of play for them here in Kaduna. And we've been to communities, we've been to houses, we've been to schools, we've brought out these children, we've organized fun fairs, we've organized intervention, we've organized awareness programs, the children, the stories, just as Mommy said, you have to make these parents know that they are part of a community. You have to make people accept that. And the first thing I keep saying is, you build the confidence of these children, because they have to fight for themselves. I have learners now that say, there's nothing wrong with me, I'm dyslexic. And this is what dyslexia is, and this is what we want. This is what we want
Yes,
schools
yes.
to know. Parents think that, like doctor said, his children or the mother not accepting that her child is different. I have had that. I have had someone that said, I'm trying to put a label on the child while the father is trying to bring back the child. And I told them, I can't, for my own sanity and for the sanity of the other learners I have here, please, you guys settle your issue, and whatever you decide on, we are here for it, because bottom line, what's best for the child? That is the bottom line. What's best for the children? It doesn't have to be what's best for mommy, what's for their daddy. What is it? Teach them, build the confidence and all other things, create awareness, keep talking, keep shouting, keep showing up. People don't call me Asma, they call me Mama Den. I love
Okay.
that. Or
Yeah.
Mama Bookworm,
Sorry.
we keep shouting and keep
Yes,
saying
yes, yes.
things like that, that after a while, everyone say, oh, dyslexia. Before people couldn't pronounce
That's
dyslexia. Now everybody
exactly.
says dyslexia, as in just rolls off the tongue like, and we like
Uh,
that. And well done. Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so
this
much, Asma. Thank you so much for the
initiative.
opportunity. I'm sorry we're short of time. Saida, if you can quickly go, Asma. Thank you for this, for the work you've been doing, encouraging these learners to see how special they are, and yeah, how, gifted they are. They are actually gifted. Asma, Saida, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go on,
Good
please.
afternoon, everyone. I learned so much from this conversation. Thank you very much for all that you all do. I just want to chip in a few things. So, from my experience working in northern Nigeria and introducing a lot of, I think 1, 2, 3, 4 can mean a lot of projects in Nigeria. We know how difficult it is introducing things to our people. So, one thing I know worked for us severally is what we call human-centered design. For everything you're doing, I know somebody mentioned something about um, having gadgets work in, okay, designing something to work in Abuja, and then you have to take it to Enugu or somewhere to go and see how if it's going to work or not. But the most important is making sure that everybody is involved during any intervention. The parents, the teachers, everybody is involved in the decision, because what somebody may need in Kano may be different from what somebody needs in Abuja. But then, even in the Kano, somebody will get there. The person in the Kano will get to that stage of the person in the Abuja if you plan it well. and you do it well. So you start from the little things they need in the Kano, for example, and then you get to, before you get to the level of what they are needing in Abuja. I don't know if you get what I mean.
I understand.
So
Yes, I understand.
yes. So
Yeah,
we've
having
done
like a
that.
backbone of human-centered design at the core of
Yes,
everything. Yeah, so
at the
you
core of
integrate everything
everything.
gradually.
Yes,
Yes, yes,
yes. So I think it's very important that you take this also take note
yes,
of this when you're designing or implementing anything. I know it has worked. I've worked on a lot of projects. Some have failed, some have worked, and those that worked, the most important is making sure everybody is
it's
involved.
involved. Yes,
That's just what I want to
that's
say.
really, I think, a core part of inclusion. You know, it starts from, it's not,
Yes,
we're not talking about just people with disabilities. Inclusion is having lending everyone a voice and acknowledging their
everybody.
voice. Yes.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
and then
So
making sure they give you information on what they actually need.
yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
thank you.
So, anybody has anything to add? Okay, Ali, will take you, and then we'll just open the floor for anybody that wants to just chip in at their experience before we round it up and call it a day. So, Ali, what have you got to say?
Um, Hello everyone. Good afternoon. I just want to make sure that you can hear me all.
We can.
So my name is Aliwia Adamu. I'm a medical student in Ahmadu Bello University Zaria. So though I don't have much experience, I learned a lot of things from this particular session we are having now. So, like what I want to add is particularly about the cultural aspect of our people, because in this inclusion aspect, culture plays a very vital role. Many times, if we go for medical outreach, especially in, though since our school is located in Zaria, we usually visit
Yes.
villages around Zaria, and sometimes we enter Kaduna to or go and deliver something. We encounter a lot of differences about culture. Some will say in their culture, though their children require this, but their culture doesn't permit them to expose them to so stuff and other things. We just have to let go of it, even though like
Yes.
them we can consider their economic condition, but some people sacrifice their time, their resources to come and give medical attention, okay, to your kids, but along the way you are telling them that you don't need this because your culture doesn't permit it. So I think it is very vital for us to include cultural expert in this run. The inclusive architecture, we should invite those that are expert in, like, those that study culture, let me say cultural dynamics and other things. It will help a lot.
Thank you very much, Ali, for raising that. That's going to be the most important thing to consider first and foremost before we achieve any effectiveness we're aiming for. Thank you. I think we have our Google Forms open for people to see it fit where they can best support the movement. And talking about the cultural aspects, we have, media experts that have, worked with people, have heard the stories of people and helped to spread the stories of people. I think they'll come in handy in that aspect. And then we even have, religious leaders. If the going gets going, we need to involve them too in the long run because they are really strategic in, shaping how community perceives an intervention. Thank you very much. So Mariam Shehu, have you got
Oh,
anything to say? Go on.
please permit me to add one thing.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So currently I'm undergoing my teacher training, and the current school setting that I'm in has a lot of children with special and additional needs. And one thing that I realized being in that environment is the importance of having these kids integrated into the classroom, being
Oh,
around their peers from the early stages, the foundation years, where they're not seen as like an anomaly or seen as different. And it helps reduce the stigma around them as well. And I think
yes.
that's one way we can change it as a society.
Thank you so much, Miriam. That's Yeah, it's all about, as Musin said earlier, the real life doesn't have, separate workplaces for people with different abilities. And yeah, the society, higher education particularly, doesn't have something separate for them. So why do we, if we keep doing running them separately, running their education separately, it becomes really difficult to reintegrate them back to the society and back to higher education or mainstream employment. And I think that's what we'll try to drive at, with the policy recommendations. Try to, strike a balance between having this inclusive education settings rather than having just exclusive special education settings. Thank you very much. So I think without any more thing to say from anybody, I would just go ahead to say thank you for showing up, and please don't forget to fill the Google form we have in the comments in the chats. We have a Google form that you can indicate areas you think your supports can be best received for this movement. Okay, Adi, you wanted to add something just briefly. Okay, Ababa?
Yeah, at the mama,
Naam.
I want to congratulate you and everyone else that has participated in this program. I've been
Thank you
trying to
very
unmute
much.
myself for the
Oh,
past
goodness.
few minutes and I
Technology.
succeeded eventually. Yeah,
Oh,
mommy just got somewhere for me and I'm unmuted.
Alhamdulillah.
So I want to thank you very much for this effort. It's
Thank you.
a very big task ahead of you now. With the inputs you have received all over, I missed a good part of it because of the limitations I have small with my technology. But I assure you, you are heading in the right direction.
Sure.
And I wish you success. I want to now thank Mr. Festus Adedoyi and the
Yes.
entire persons that have put this together and have participated fully. I want to thank you and let us now sit back and maybe go through the transcripts and get to
Yes.
know what we really need to focus on because we
Yes.
have a lot of input we have received so far. I really appreciate the resource persons and I appreciate Mr. Festus once more and especially you at the Mama. I wish you all the best and success.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, really, thank you very much. Thank you. So, thank you so much. And talking about the recording, we're going to put it on YouTube, inshallah, after the meeting. And then there's some PowerPoint presentations we didn't present actually. We didn't, yeah, we just decided to just have like a speech kind of thing. But would share the presentations to just, give you a hindsight of okay, what we've been doing or what we want to do. It better captures the whole story, yes. Thank you very much for coming, everyone. Aliyu, if you quickly add the thing you
Oh,
wanted to
yes,
say, and
yes.
then we'll
I'm
just
with you.
yeah.
I'm with you. Please, yesterday I was talking to some people in Kano. What was the location? The cow in Kano, not the one in Kaduna.
Okay.
Some people with this type of cognitive disabilities, they share a lot of their vision, what they want to achieve in life and stuff, but their parents will not let them do a lot
Mm,
of stuff due to the stigma that they are facing.
I
Not
see.
them, even the parents are facing a lot of stigmatization towards them, so they don't want to expose them for medical attention or for education, anything
Yes,
related to that. They
yes,
just prefer
yeah.
to keep them at home. I don't know if like this movement will make a move towards them.
Yeah, that's actually that's the sad reality with many children facing that challenge. But that's the discussion has just begun. We're going to clear the path, inshallah, to make things better
Okay,
as
okay.
much as we can, yes. So the awareness campaigns and sensitivity, raising sensitivities around sensitization, sorry, sensitization, would go a long way eventually. We aim to reach the grassroots with all this because we're
Oh,
actually doing it for them, not for us. Thank you very much. So Dr.
okay.
Festus, would you just give us a wrap if it's convenient? Would you just wrap up for us before
Sorry,
we?
before then, sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
I see a question on the chat in the chat
Okay.
box. Yes, I don't know if people with experience can answer that.
Is it from, okay, Zainab
From
Muhammad?
Zainab Mohammed, yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. She says, I have a student of almost 14 years now that can hardly speak and cannot write, but the parents don't care to seek for help, and the school also don't bother to investigate and give intervention for their problem. I wanted to help, but I felt it's not a one-person business. Can someone please advise what to do now? I would not be able to speak because there's disturbance in my location right now. So I think, but she'll be listening. So I'll leave it to Mommy and Musin, if you could just give an insight, please.
Um, well, honestly, the reality is, everyone in that child's life is a stakeholder, and for something to be done, everybody needs to be on board. Now, I don't know the position of the person asking the question, but if she's a teacher, for example, then she needs to find that one family member that is reasonable enough to understand or listen to her in any way possible. You understand, to try to see how they can actually maybe come up with a plan and then speak to important members of the school, because well, all people can be the same. I don't believe that the school doesn't care. There has to be one person in that school that cares, right? Probably the dean, probably the principal, somebody, and then sit down and have a talk. Funny enough, actually, I have a case like that family, a cousin, who kind of has the same situation, but recently they all realized that they had a role to play in that child's life. And so the mother, siblings, the school, class teacher, and important members of the school sat down and had a meeting, and then everyone's role was designated to them, that you have to do this at this point and I have to do this at that point, something like that. So the person asking the question, reach out to important family members, even if it's an uncle. There has to be somebody that cares. They can't all be the same. You understand? But obviously, when you reach out, you have to be, you have to be diplomatic about it. You have to not, kind of shame them, because most people would definitely react if you show them that, oh, they're not doing enough. Because in their minds, they're doing enough. You just have to diplomatically tell them that they have to do more. You understand? And so when you're able to do that, I believe that you should get some results out of it.
Thank you very much.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's basically the truth. It's not that they don't care, but they don't know. I still believe that. And I have had a lot of engagements, when you appear and you say, okay, you're an NGO and you're here for advocacy talks and all of that. And they tell you there's a child in my class. She's 13, but she will pee in class without telling somebody I want to go and pee. She'll do this. And then I will coach and coach and coach. I take time to coach, but the person does not understand. I don't know what is wrong. Can you come over and take the child? So we have had a lot of engagement like this, but it's just the understanding and the communication. Like he said, you are concerned. So the person asking should take the first step, find out what is wrong. Could it be from the family? Do they know what is wrong? If they don't know what is wrong, can you kind of talk with them and tell them that this is your observation, not shaming. Tell them that this is your observation. You can link them up with some other people that will better explain what is wrong. And with the school, the teachers, they also need to know that you see, we just call inclusive, but a lot of them don't know what is wrong with these children and how they can help. And that's where coaching and the teaching of our teachers, we need to skill them up about the children they have in the school. They just accept them, but nothing much is happening. But we need to have this engagement where everybody on this platform has said one thing or the other. Honestly, we need to come together and reach out to some of these schools, maybe from location to location. How is there anybody there that is operating on a similar level? Can you go to this school and find out what is happening? Can you help? That's the only way we can reach out. We cannot from one place reach out to everybody in Nigeria, but I'm sure with our connection, collaboration, we'll be able to help some of these children and intervene in some of these cases. Thank you.
Thank you very mumuch. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Yeah, so I think we've come to the end of the session. I'll say it's so sad we have to end it. Like, well, the discussion keeps getting more interesting by every observation or single comment that comes up. Thank you so much. And then before the unveiling of the app, we're hoping to do it next year, sometime next year. But before then, we're going to hit the ground running with training these teachers and parents on how to leverage on inclusive digital learning tools, to help them improve the learning experience for learners and children in and outside of school. So I'll say I dropped the Google form. Hopefully, if you get your email from that Google form, then we'll share further information about the date and time for the next training. Hopefully before the end of November, we'll have a date communicated to you. And better still, you can also drop your emails in the chat box right now before you leave. Yes, just so we have a backup. Thank you so much. Thank you, Zara Unscripted, for sharing your story. And next time we'll hear from other parents as well that are interested to, because I see storytelling is kind of therapeutic, I guess. The more you talk about your problems, the easier they tend to become. It doesn't get easy one time, like at a go, but it gets easier with time. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Just drop your emails here, and I'll grab as much as I can before the call goes off. Thank you. So feel free to just drop if, yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll stop recording.